Um,
Same.
hang on. Oh, well, I am so heartened. You know, I'm here with Maureen McKenna. Um, Her friends call her Mo, and I feel blessed to be her friend. And Mo is a leader um, in the world of appreciative inquiry. This is where we met. We met through the exchange community, and I just feel like such a kindred spirit. And we've been engaged in a series of conversations that, you know, we've spoken about how we've been in a mentor relationship, because I've learned so much from you, Mo. It's just been extraordinary, and I trust you've learned some bits
Uh,
from me too. Um,
Learned a ton from you for sure. Yeah.
yeah. So, Mo, how do we capture? Well, I think people can feel the spirit of love for each other, but we've also done some extraordinary work together. I'm thinking about the work that we did with the Whole Health Institute, and I just um, I want to shine a light on you. Just, and I know what you'll sense is that Mo has a discomfort of anybody shining a light on Mo. And yet she is such an extraordinary leader, and a humble leader at that. So how can we best shine a light on you? You have, your company is, it's return
On energy.
return on energy. So basically, you know, we have a kinship, and, you know, this awakening conscious leadership program, you know, it's talking about how do we lead from our best selves? How does a system lead from, and it's all energy. It's ultimately how do you create psychological safety and community so you can stream that energy of flourishing into a world of significance and delivering value. So you're doing that work in your own extraordinary way.
Well, it's interesting because probably about 7, 8 years ago, why I changed my company name to Return on Energy, I had the sense that just as the external climate was being impacted by where we were sourcing our energy to drive the businesses, perhaps it was our organization and community that was also suffering from a lack of positive energy because of where we were, it was about shortage. And where appreciative inquiry comes in, it's about let's look for in every system, in every life, and everything, something is working. Let's find the energy and then we'll build on it. So what it came to me was that if we don't focus on energy sources, like looking for abundance, looking for what's working, lifting people up, talking about their strengths, not their weaknesses, we're diminishing the energy. But once we start talking about those other things, suddenly we tap in. I mean, I think that's where you and I could be really tired. We get on the call together and suddenly the level of our conversation elevates and we're tapping into that field of energy. And that's what replenishes. So that's what my passion is. And it's really about helping people be more human and productive at work and in life. And so I loved when you and I started to talk, because one of my biggest challenges has been self-doubt. And it's been that whole thing of managing my triggers. And I have just learned so much from you over this last year, and watching you just in these last few weeks about being very conscious about that point of, what do I need? What will best support me right now?
Yeah. Well,
And that just touches me a lot, because especially through COVID and what's going on in the world, if we all paused as you do. So so one, we've got this passion for human energy, and I just want to be so grateful for what you've helped me around managing my self-doubt and my triggers.
well, well, I thank you for that, Mo. And you're the person in the exchange community that people often come to for actually helping them architect more precise and generative questions. Would that be fair to say?
Well, you know what? I'm a good sounding board for them. Yes.
Yeah, and I initially I was introduced to you through my brother Dan Diamond, and he said you've got to meet Mo because she's just extraordinary, and then he would share with me the questions that he was working on, and he was saying, oh my God, Mo just opened up a whole new world for me because questions create worlds, and you've got this gift of like opening up whole new worlds, but just even by changing, I mean, the subtlety of being able to change one or two words in a question. And you've got that gift for feeling into that, already unlocking the energy. And when you're looking at, it's either a world of depreciation or devitalization, or it's a world of flourishing energy. And just that pivot point. And for, I credit the exchange community for in some way saving my life, in the way that on that night that I was admitted to the ward by myself alone, and I was in spikes of fear, and I was watching my brain go into the automatic negative questions, because our brain safety first. So I was going into what if in every catastrophe that could happen, what's going to happen to my family, why me, why now? That's all default questions. But I have a mindfulness practice, and I had the wherewithal to find a question that was of sufficient altitude, and questions have altitude. And the question that I had that was sufficient altitude was, and then it cascades all the way down and touches down on the ground with pragmatic impact. So my high altitude question was, what matters most now?
Yeah.
And then it cascaded into make every moment count. And then how? Live loving relationships and live the legacy of my work. And each of those had a how. So I'm acutely aware of the power of questions or unlocking energy, and that you're a master at that.
Well, I have been so grateful because when I first got into this field 20 some years ago, my mentor was Jane Magruder Watkins. And you'll probably know David Cooperrider is the leader that came up with Appreciative Inquiry at Case Western University. And when he was a student, Jane was his mentor. And she was an early expert in the whole field of organizational development. And she just gravitated to this. And I had the blessing of spending 16 years at her side, learning with and from her. And I think that's that piece of where you can get grounded in the appreciative inquiry, just as in that moment of where you felt despair, there's something that can trigger you to take you to a different place. And I think that's what David Cooperrider and Jane have done so well, is saying, positive image, positive action, words create worlds. The questions we ask, the change begins the moment we ask the question. And that is so incredibly powerful. And when you bring in your work around looking at conscious leadership, it opened up for me and unlocked for me the ability to actually deconstruct what I need to do to be able to be in that pause, to be able to then choose what question do I even want to ask.
Yeah.
That's what I think is just such, the beauty of your work coming together with the beauty of what John is doing at Exchange and the originating of the appreciative inquiry, is you've actually helped to deconstruct something that intuitively some of us kind of leap to. And what you have done is helped us slow down and pause and be able to really unravel that miraculous small step that could be missed. I don't know if that's making sense, but that's beauty. That's why it's like an evolution of appreciative inquiry. And what I love is when you're with that, what's those next steps? What do we need to do as we understand the brain?
Yeah.
And how dominant it is in our whole well-being. I mean, I can be my absolute, I used to say I'm optimistic about the world and pessimistic about myself.
Right. It's and how many of you can relate to that, by the way? How many of you can relate, listening, to this idea that you can be more compassionate towards other people than you can be towards yourself. And there's a reason for that. And that is that we're bred for compassion, because if we don't care for our young kids or our clan, we don't pass our genetic material on. But ultimately, the interesting thing is self-compassion doesn't have its own inherent survival advantage, because when we make a mistake, like let's imagine in primordial times, when we step out of the cave and we make a mistake such that we could be taken out by the saber-toothed tiger, our brain learns by two ways. One is by repetition, and the other one is by powerful emotion. When it comes to physical safety, we don't get the luxury of repetition. So our brain defaults with harsh self-doubt and self-criticism. So, I'm a student of self-doubt as well, because I've been fascinated by coming to a healthy relationship with self-doubt. I have been in evolution towards this healthy relationship with self-doubt. And now I think I've finally transcended some aspect of my self-doubt through my full spiritual surrender, that I'm no longer, mostly in service of something larger than myself, than worrying about who do I need to be worthy. So that's actually given me a place of transcendence. But this notion of us experiencing, this predisposition to being more optimistic about the world and about being compassionate with other people in the world than we have towards ourselves. So it's almost like what we need to do is, when we experience self-doubt, sometimes one of the techniques is to pause and to step back in a mindfulness way and to watch the inner conversation around that from a dispassionate place. You're observing self, to actually experience the sense, oh, I'm not my thoughts, sensations, and emotions, but these are the thought sensations that I'm having. That's the power of mindfulness. It enables you to elevate. And if you elevate with openness, kindness, and curiosity, you can actually hold this with a greater sense of equanimity. You create a stability of mind, but then you begin to watch these words, and you actually can begin to actually say, there's my self-criticism. Well, how would I be engaging my best friend under the same circumstances? And then allowing yourself to rotate in with, you actually are externalizing and bringing in our natural predisposition towards others, to then internalizing that towards a new way of working.
And I think that is so beautiful, and it ties in so beautifully with the appreciative approach. Yes. Because if I can show up and like we are the instrument. So when we show up to facilitate, our job is to hold that space, to make it safe for whatever energy comes up, and to help people discover, where are they like-hearted? Where is it, no matter how unlike they are in their mindsets and their beliefs, where are they like-hearted? And once you create that umbrella, and we call that the topic choice, then we can bring people together to have those conversations, to really listen in to someone who has a very different perspective. And I really feel that that is so critical right now in the world. And I think about an autism think tank that I did many years ago, and I convinced the school board to move from a group of 30 to have input to the future policy for education on autism for the school board here in Ontario. And I pushed them to bring in 180. And where appreciative inquiry works so beautifully in the choreographing of it, is at each table it was a microcosm of the system. There was an adult, a child with high functioning autism. There was a parent. There was an advocate. There was someone from the government. There was someone from healthcare. There was educators. And the night before, it was quite funny. The superintendent called me and said, "Mo, go to the website. It says if you didn't get an invite, storm the building." And so, I mean, it was like, but she was nervous. And so we had a little protocol of how we would manage if someone were to arrive. And I remember waking up, talking about when you're asleep and your mind is still working away. And I woke up and I have my one and only quote. And I gave this quote at the beginning of this session. after I was introduced and I was about to put people into the paired interview, which you know of from the Appreciative Inquiry. And I paused and I said, the complexity of today's problems are such that we must bring like-hearted people together.
Wow.
180 in this room are passionate about better education for our children on the spectrum, and no one can dispute anyone's passion here.
Right.
And we must use the diversity of our thinking. Of 180 of us have thought long and hard about different ways to address this. If we can respectfully listen to each other, we will co-create solutions that we will all implement.
Yes.
And I think that's the job of when we're talking about facilitating, how to set the container. And later in the day, I saw this man banging on a table, but everybody around him was very kind of even-tempered, and they were doing the design. What do we do next? And I heard him say, yeah, I know we're like-hearted, but damn it, this part, this process, this policy must change. And I think that to me is the beauty of the work that we do when we set up and we facilitate. How do we create the container where everyone can feel included,
Yes.
have their voice heard, not to be judged, but to be appreciated for the work and effort they put into that, and then together co-create the image of the future that we will all buy into.
Wow. Okay. So now I think you all understand why I love Mo. Because Mo, we have this coalition, as you know, the Living Well from Within initiative that is going to be housed within the Global Wellness Institute. And we're bringing together an extraordinary group of leaders to join this coalition that can facilitate this work of healing, growth, and flourishing wellness to elevate humanity in the world. And part of that's going to take, a methodology of the exchange approach, which overlaps with appreciative inquiry, integrates it. As well as there's an aspect here of awakening. What does it mean for us to co-awaken as conscious leaders together? These are really extraordinary individuals. And what makes them extraordinary is most of these individuals, I would say all of them, understand that as leaders, we have our own work to do. There's always a new frontier of growth and awakening in our conscious leadership. And this idea of coming together and co-awakening further as conscious leaders to do this work of healing, growth, and facilitating flourishing wellness in the world to serve you listening more effectively at this time of historic need and opportunity. So I would love you to be not only a part of the coalition, but to be a part of the committee, because the committee will be doing the designing work to kind of hold the methodology that we will be taking to the coalition that will allow this flourishing, this unlocking of collective wisdom, the like-heartedness to emerge that you so beautifully, describe. And you have a wealth of experience. And I would say if anybody wants to learn more about your work, we'll put a link to the Return on Energy website, below this, and you can look at all the case studies of the extraordinary work that you've already done. You've got wonderful case studies there. And well, first of all, let me just say, so what do you say, first of all?
Well, I would love to be part. And I think what's so exciting is to be a part of such, leading thinkers, and not just thinkers, but people who are leading with both head, heart, and hands. And whatever I can do to support you, you're doing an extraordinary work. And I'm just so grateful to be a mentor and with you.
Well, God bless you. Well, I love you. I love you. I love you. And I feel so blessed. Thank you for enriching my life.
It's very mutual, very, very mutual. Love you too, Danny.